They can be categorized into two categories. Apyehi sampayogo dukkho, pyehi vipayogo dukkho. This is his thinking. He's categorizing it. He's categorizing all the experiences of life in just two categories. His reflection, thinking. Then yampi ichamana labhati tampi dukkham. Then out of these two, he has focused into one. He is converted into one category. Yampi ichamana labhate tampi dukkham. This includes earlier two. दोनों के दोनों आ गए उसमें. अब पिए है और पिए ही दोनों आ गए. यम्पि इच्छमना लभते. Then he goes Sankhittena Panchupadanakhan. That's it. That is the final insight. That is the insight. How gradually, by reflection on this, he comes to an understanding. Sankhittena Panchupadanakhandha dukkha. And it is that he exclaims, Arey, wonderful. This was not the result of any observation of the body or breath or anything. It was contemplation of the experience which we have. Trying to not just seeing the experience, remembering the experience, but reflecting on it, categorizing it, trying to focus it and bring it to a point where its root cause could be found out. So that's called yoniso manasikara. So wise reflection is the key thing in developing panya. If you read Anapansati Sutta from this perspective, you'll find it's full of only wise reflection. First four instructions have certain things to do. Later on, slowly and slowly, we move towards wiser and more contemplative exercises. You look at Satipatthana Sutta, contemplation. You see, you read sometimes and see the instructions. Unfortunately, we don't focus on those instructions so much. You see, when you see body exercises, for example, mindfulness of breathing. Okay, we understand that. At every section ends in this contemplation. He abides contemplating arising and nature of arising, nature of passing away, contemplating the nature of both arising and passing away. Everywhere. Then when you talk about, say, instructions like Sampajanya, what does it mean? What is one doing? He's aware and reflecting on that nature of experience. And in the bodies of Ashubha Bhavana, what is Ashubha Bhavana? It's just contemplation, wise reflection. What is or let me go to a very simple question, okay? Very, very fundamental. Now, I don't mean to criticize anybody. That's why I've been trying to avoid saying any, getting into it, specific issues. No, I'll ask you a very simple question, all of you and all of me, because I've asked myself so many times. We all know that we should practice, develop the insight of anicca, dukkha, anatta. What do we do about it? We see, okay, breath is going in, breath is anicca. We look at the body and we say, okay, these feelings are arising, they are anicca, they're changing, they're changing. They are impermanent and therefore they are suffering. And therefore they are not me, not mine, myself. And all that we do is just keep on looking at it, looking at it, looking at the body, looking at the body, looking at things. How many of us can say that we have really developed anicca or dukkha? Leave aside anatta. Years have passed by, decades have passed by. Why has it not happened? Hmm? Would anybody like to answer it so that we have some good discussion on it? That's a very crucial question. I've been practicing for 4 decades, almost 39 years. And if I take the earlier practice, it's almost 50 years. Why is it that anicca, dukkha, we leave anatta maybe too? Because anatta is something probably difficult for us at this stage of. What about anicca? It's such a simple thing. Have we really developed the insight of anicca? Don't we all know that was anicca is there?
Sudhar, I've been struggling with this for a long time, and in fact, I've asked in a couple, once in a while, I've asked this question. And when this stream entry occurs in Buddha's discourses, the first utterance that comes to their mind is everything is changing, everything is arising and passing away. So, what is the difference between their understanding and what we understand by
Yeah,
permanence? That makes all the difference, is something I've not been able to figure out.
yeah. Because their understanding is resulting in its transformation in the
Correct.
view.
So
It's
ये
resulting
तो
in
ऑब्वियस है कि हम
transformation.
इसको
Why is it
बहुत
not happening? Why is it
सुपरफिशियली
not
लेते हैं,
happening with this? Ji?
हम बहुत सुपरफिशियली ही देख पाते हैं,
Yeah. What
डीपली
does it
नहीं देख
mean? What
पाते.
does it mean? Exactly this was the answer that you please keep on doing meditation in the stage will come in the body. I mean, with all respect, I'm not trying to criticize anybody. And when you'll see the body will be in, you'll get this kind of experience, this, and ultimately you'll see complete dissolution of the body. And when you see complete dissolution, the anicca will be very clear. I must have seen it 1,000 times. But not maybe, I won't say 1,000, probably, certainly 100 times. And stayed in that state for long periods of time and seen its arising and passing away. The moment for some times you're in a complete state of dissolution, the whole body is gone, and then after time it arises again, then again it goes out, then again we need to retreat it will happen 100, 10, 20 times. And since then it has happened so many times. But can I say I have really embarked upon Nicha thoroughly? Why is it not happening? Well, as it happens, sometimes with everybody, I find the answers in strange and on the right time from the right some interesting source. I was just last night again reflecting, and this question came up, and I hit upon a book by Weissman, published by this Buddhist Publication Society, the role of something on wise reflection, and he asked these questions. A very interesting comment he makes. How many meditators sit in meditation, reflect for an entire meditation period about the constant changing nature of existence? How many sit in meditation and reflect for an entire period about the unsatisfactory nature of life in its various dimensions? How many sit in meditation, reflect for an entire period about the impersonal nature of body, thoughts, non-ownership, and this? We don't do that because we have a understanding कि ध्यान करते समय अगर हमने सोचना शुरू कर दिया, विचार करना शुरू कर दिया, तो टाइम वेस्ट हो गया. And the result is that we just keep on mechanically observing anicca, 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 body, anicca, this anicca, that anicca. We don't reflect. What does it mean in our life? There are people who have done that reflection over years and lifetimes, and then suddenly they hit it and they get it through. They, they like what you read in the suttas with the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta and so many. Then to have instantaneous insight into this. Why does it not happen? Because of, in spite of so much repeated seeing, so quote unquote seeing, because we're not contemplating on it. We're not contemplating on it with respect to our life enough. So contemplating deeply in peace with a mind which is comparatively tranquil. We contemplate it in state of turmoil. Somebody has died and the estate is standing and waiting for the cremation to take place and see, oh my God, this is really, everybody dies. Come back and finished. Because at that time, mind is not in a state to accept and understand that. So what is being suggested is that when you sit here, then contemplate on, especially impermanence of pleasant situation. That's why Buddha keeps on giving these hints. Anicca is primarily for pleasant experiences of life. Look at that. Dukkha is especially for dukkha in the pleasant experiences of life, because every time he talks of craving, he talks of pleasant experiences. Yayam tanha panu bhavika nandi raga sahagata. He's always talking of that because we are always craving for that. And there's suffering because we are not able to fulfill it. So, do we really contemplate on that, on the pleasant experiences of our life and see their impermanence and just reflect on it periodically? Sit through the, when you call meditation, reflect on it deeply. Think about it. As this experiences of how did I behave in the experiences of pleasant experiences of various kinds at each sense door. That's what is advised. At each sense door, we are told, advise, look at that. How will you look? Contemplate on that. Wisely contemplate on that. That is the method for developing panya. Buddha again and again says, Yoniso Manasikara is the key factor in developing panya. It is the bridge between sati and panya. Mere sati will not develop panya. You do whatever you like. How much, whatever you may be mindful, oh, this is happening, breath is going, or you do mental noting, unpleasant, pleasant, the craving, aversion. If you don't do wise reflection, it won't read in panya. This is Buddha's words. That is the proximate cause for panya. Not sati, not samadhi. They are distant causes, they are supportive causes. So unless we reflect, unless we think properly in the light of reflection means thinking in the light of Buddha's teachings. So practice, I would again submit, does not mean just this much. That also is practice. That is to an extent samadhi bhavana, samatha bhavana. So practice includes a very deep level of contemplation. Yoniso manasikara. Using that for contemplating on our experiences of day-to-day life. So when we say that we are just studying this sutta and not practice, I wonder, what is practice then? If studying a sutta is not practice, what is practice? So I would request, we can reflect on it. It's a very, it may sound very unsettling. We need to reflect on that. And Buddha didn't attain enlightenment by meditation, by observing the breath. Let's be clear. By contemplating on dependent origination. And how does he contemplate? Especially in case of Buddha Sikhi, he mentions, he reflected in the opposite direction. Okay, there is aging and death is happening. What is the cause of it? He didn't think, yeah, people get old, we will die because of this disease, that disease, accident. There's no. There's contemplation to the root, because birth. This may sound, it's understandable. We know that. But for a person to investigate and figure it out, that's what is meant by insight. Why does birth happen? What is he doing? He's thinking, he's contemplating, looking at his experience directly. And that's how the dependent origin. And he says, till that time I didn't understand dependent origination. I didn't declare that I have become enlightened. That is the enlightenment. Enlightenment happens through wise reflection. And everything else is a preparatory ground. So bhavana is used in from the side of cultivation. And the example given when you see the etymology of the word is the farmer does the bhavana of his soil and then sows the seed and then the crops grow. That is called cultivation of crops. What does it mean? To prepare the ground properly. Fertilizer, water, air, everything taken care, removing the weeds, removing the stones. And then you sow the seed of enlightenment in that and let it sprout. All that is preparatory ground. And that preparatory ground means creating wholesome mental states, removing unwholesome mental states, understanding right views, removing wrong views. Otherwise, there's no cultivation possible. Okay. I think it's good. Okay. So, what was the logic behind the four suttas? We've already mentioned what are the four suttas in our daily meditation session. We discussed the Brahmajala Sutta, which mentions what are the wrong views and gives you an idea of what is the right view. In the capsule form, it tells you what is the right view is understanding things. And that's not actually a view. That's actually transcending all views. We call it Sammaditthi, right view, but it actually means transcending all. It's seeing the things as they are. That's it. That is real seeing. To say avijja pachya sankhara is not a view. It is truth. Say sarayatan pachya phassa phassa pachya vedana. This is not a view. This is a description of the truth as it happens. This is what is meant by yathabhuta jnana darshanam. We call it right view as a contrast to wrong views. That's okay. That's a conventional word behind it. So all that we have seen in the Brahmajala Sutta. I'll repeat it so as to consolidate it together. But at the first sutta we are going. Now, because the question was asked, what are you going to do the same thing? Are you going to do the same thing for whole 3 months and waste our time? Then we will not do, we'll do something else. I said, yeah, fine, that's your welcome. If it's a waste of time, you can do something else. That's perfectly fine. But let me explain what are we going to do and why we have chosen these four suttas. Okay. This is the first. It gives you an encapsulated form of wrong view of the direction towards right view and points out the various wrong views. Why it is important, we'll again discuss. So once we get an encapsulated form that this so-called that dependent origination, understanding that is actually the right so-called right view, it is actually transcending the views. Then we have a detailed discussion on that dependent origination in the next sutta which we are going to study, which is the Mahanidana Sutta, this 15th Sutta of the Nikaya. We are going to study that. That is supposed to be the most elaborate description and explanation of dependent origination available in the Tipitaka. So we'll study that. And that also has whole section on views. You see, that's interesting. That also has whole section on various wrong views. And you can see with respect to this sutta then what exactly is being said and why is it being repeated. And then after that, we are going to study the Sakka Panna Sutta, which will be questions asked by Sakka again with respect to view. What is it that causes conflict? What is it that prevents us from living peacefully and so on, which is in a more kind of down to earth way. And all that is eventually comes to the same kind of idipachata, cause-effect relationship and generalize that. And as this sutta says, at the end of it, Sakka became Sotapanna. And not only he, some huge number of deities attained the first level of realization. So the whole process is essentially of that. And then the last sutta will be the second sutta of the Nikaya, Samanya Pada Sutta, which is supposed to be the most elaborate exposition on the complete path. Complete path of the teaching of the Buddha is explained in a very beautiful way, in a very detailed way to the Emperor Ajatasattu by Buddha, which actually the title of it is, what are the fruits of Samanya, what are the fruits of recluseship, or I would say, what are the fruits of being a meditator, being a seeker. What do you gain by being a seeker? This is the question Ajatasattu asks Buddha, and then he gives this answer. Effectively, complete path, complete graduated path is explained in full detail. So it will be actually a comprehensive summary of the whole teachings of the Buddha, which includes this cause-effect relationships and interdependence, conditionality, everything included in it. But also in terms of benefits which we get, it is explained in that sense. So those benefits are explained in a beautiful manner. So these are the 4 suttas which we are going to discuss. And you can see the logic behind their choices to understand the teachings thoroughly, to understand the whole process of cause-effect relationship in our life, to understand the dependent origination thoroughly, to develop a right view, if I may put it in summary, one word, one sentence. The whole idea of it is to develop a right view and to keep away from wrong views. Okay, so that's the whole going to be the discussion. It will be, in my opinion, practice of the most difficult kind, which is very which demands a lot from us, a lot of attention, a lot of investigative abilities, looking at the mind, looking at understanding the teaching in a proper manner. Okay. Now, in this question of practice, there is also very important aspect, that is need for depth and breadth in practice. Okay. In the last retreat, we did mention about zoom in, zoom out. I found a better word for it in that book. It says narrow mindfulness and wide mindfulness. Okay. Of course, Buddha teaches both, not just narrow mindfulness. Teaches the wide mindfulness. Sampajanya. What is that Sampajanya, Pabbam? Everywhere it is Atapi Sampajano Pratima. What does it mean? Ajjatta Bhajidava, Ajjatta Bhajida, internal, external, constantly talking about that. That's wide mindfulness. When you're doing walking in a secure place, in a place where there is no disturbance or there's no danger, of that kind, you can walk, just focus on the foot, and what we are told, see very simply, okay, just observe the sensations on the foot, and whatever disturbance happens, remove that. Don't bother about it. Focus on that. And so that your mind becomes learns to be collected. Very good. That's one aspect of practice. But will you do that while crossing the road? Would that narrow mindfulness be applicable when you cross a road? No, obviously not. You need to allow all the things to come in and make sure how do you walk. Exactly same thing is true of we are when we are doing samatha bhavana, we say thoughts arise, don't ignore them, practice. But when we do insight, thoughts come, look at them. What are they? And if they come again and again, investigate where are they coming. Yathase anupanna se kama chandasya upado hoti. So that's wide mindfulness. You have to look at all the aspects behind it. So in this context of wide mindfulness, then the question of study. Study of suttas is very important from that point of view. Why is it important? You can see it, in our chanting, we talk of sutta dhana, we talk of bahu satchang tasip pancha, We talk sutta as an ayudha, The most beautiful explanation is in the Nagar Upma Sutta. What does it take? And I've just put down the quotation from here. Just as a citadel means just as a किले के अंदर many weapons, projectile, handheld. In the same way, a noble disciple is very learned. They remember and keep what they have learned. They are very learned in teachings, remembering them, reciting them, mentally scrutinizing them, and comprehending them theoretically. And with the learning as their weapon, the meditator gives up the unskillful qualities and develops the skillful. Gives up the blameworthy, develops the blameless, and they keep themselves pure. This is the fourth aspect of that sutta, and fourth aspect of what should the mendicant should be doing, practice, what a seeker should do. So we need to have a good bouquet of our tools in our repertory, which we know when to use, what tool has to be used. And that's why the need for a breadth in our study. We have been focusing on the three vasas, on Panchakhandas, with the idea that we should be able to develop in depth in our practice. And this vasa, we are going to develop width and our breadth in our practice, so that we see the whole gamut of teachings, not the whole, very small, just four suttas, four principal suttas, and try to understand what they are telling us. They are difficult, certainly. Especially first, second sutta, difficult. They demand a lot of application from our side. So, but that is the practice actually. That's how we sharpen our mind. That's how we sharpen our ability to see. Okay. Then, I was just last night reflecting upon this issue. Where does this issue of teaching and Bhavasutta and learning come up? I mentioned to you some which we chant. Suttadhanam we chant, Bhavu Satcham we chant, in Mangal Sutta we keep on chanting. Isme hamara Mangal hai. Then the greatest thing which always has struck me is in Mahaparinibbana Sutta, what are the things which Buddha says are helpful? What are the things which prevent decline of mendicants or meditators or seekers? You can replace mendicants by seekers who want to seek, want to follow the path. He says, Saddha, Hiri, Otappi, Bahusutta, Aradhya Virya, Upatisatti, and Panyavanto. So you need Saddha, Hiri, Otappa, learning, Aradhya Virya means effort, energetic, Upatisthi means constantly mindful, and Panyavanto, wisdom. And they are not independent of each other, they are related. Wisdom comes by contemplation of learning, contemplation of the teaching. That's what teaching is meant for. And a very touching episode which is there, we have read it, Mahaparinibbana Sutta, so much. When Mara comes and tells him, please, enough, you now have taught students, done everything, now go, don't trouble me. And Buddha then tells him, I shall not become fully quenched until I have. Then, of course, he says monks, then he says bhikkhus, then he says bhikkhuni, then he says upasaka, then he says upasikas. So I put rather than monk, I have written a yellow color. Disciples who are competent, educated, assured, learned, and have memorized the teachings and practice in line with the teachings. That's first thing. Not until that, he says, I will not leave this world until they practice properly, living in with the teaching. Not until they have learned their tradition and explain, teach, assert, establish, disclose, analyze, and make it clear. Not until they can legitimately and completely refute the doctrines of others that come up and teach with a demonstrable basis. This is his wish. This is what he sustained his life for. That we should become so competent that we are able to practice accordingly, we are able to teach, we are able to assert, admonish others, and refute the other doctrines, because otherwise we will get carried away. If you study some of the very profound philosophical books, including the Indian tradition scriptures, Upanishads, or other tradition philosophies of Stoics, for example, or Socrates, phenomenal teachings which seem to match with the teachings of Buddha, but differ in certain points of view. You'll not be able to figure it out, what's going on. You can easily get carried away by them if you don't have that clarity of understanding. So that's my response. I think I'll stop here. Response to this issue. Why we are doing this kind of practice these days in this sutta, in this session for Vasa for 3 months. Why we have decided to study these suttas. And they are the ones which are irrespective of the tradition, irrespective of the commentator. All of them say they are the most profound suttas in the whole Tipitaka. DN1, DN2, DN15, and DN21 also to a great extent. All them, you study Bhikkhu Bodhi, Thanisaro Bhikkhu, or Bhante Sujato, the principal people who talk about these are Bhikkhu Bodhi, all of them. Because Bhikkhu Bodhi has written on Majjhima Nikaya to a great extent. He didn't tackle the Digha Nikaya, but only these suttas he has written, commentaries. And finally, lastly, when we study a sutta and we find we can't understand it, we treat it as a challenge. I can share that when I studied this the first time 10, 15 years ago, I couldn't figure out. Then after some time, I could get the book of that Bhikkhu Bodhi. I studied it. I couldn't figure out. But I could get sense that there is something very important in it. Yeah? But मेरी समझ नहीं आ रहा है. I said, okay, let me reflect on it slowly. Then I left it. At that time, it was not possible. Then again, some other situation arose. I said, okay, let me read it again. Maybe more understanding, more practice. And then, yeah, I could see that. What was the hidden message behind it, which is not apparent in the sutta, which is partly apparent in the commentary, and partly became apparent because I had studied the other philosophies I am aware of. And I could see that I had been carried away by that for a long time, very, very long time, right till last 5 years ago. Till 5 years ago. I almost tried to do some of that. I'll discuss in the next set of presentation, maybe tomorrow. So I'll stop here, and if there are any questions, we can take it. Sorry, I've taken more time, but I thought it's good to complete this phase, then I'll take the second phase of teachings. Any questions if there are? Clarifications needed? I'll be happy to respond.